Hi, everybody. On behalf of Access to Integrative Medicine, a Health Institute, and the GW Office of Integrative Medicine and Health, welcome to A Mindfulness Experience. AIM is a nonprofit organization with the mission to provide vulnerable and low-income communities with access to whole person health and wellness. The GW Office of Integrative Medicine and Health promotes integrative medicine by providing learning opportunities to health professionals and health consumers. Today's facilitators are Dr. Aly Cohen, a triple board certified physician in internal medicine, rheumatology, and integrative medicine. She's also a trained specialist in environmental health and the founder of Integrative Rheumatology Associates. She's also joined by Sage Raindancer of Raindancer Healing Arts, a certified nature and forest therapy guide. So Dr. Cohen, I will turn things over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for bearing with my tech unsavvy skill set. I wanted to say hello and thank you all for having me at this session. When I think about wellness and I think number one, to get away from my kids, at least right now, because they're driving me up the wall. But when I think about overall wellness, I think it's a different feel for every person. As most of us realize that, there's different places we get joy and there's different places that we find quiet. And I happen to be, I guess I'll just share, I happen to be a real lover of animals, and my cat and my dog happen to be probably one of the greatest sources of my peace because they ask for nothing. They appreciate everything. And they're really soft. So, I mean, there's just so much about my pets that makes me have calm. And in fact, in the morning when the kids are sleeping and my husband's doing something else, I just kind of sit outside, especially during this wonderful weather. I'm in New Jersey. And I really get calm and peace before a really busy day, which inevitably will leave me exhausted and overwhelmed. So, I guess I started with that. Does anyone want to jump in and have some banter? Because I don't want to feel like I'm overwhelming the talk. Anyone love their pets like I do? Okay, great. I see a hand. Dr. Frame.
I was raising my hand for loving my pets.
Okay.
I have had a lot of cameos lately in my meetings, and I'm perfectly okay with it now. At first, you're like, oh, I'm in a meeting, I can't have my pet walking around and making noise, but most people seem to like it and react really well to it. So I've started to chill out about it and just enjoy the moment.
Yeah, the cat walks right across the screen, and I just hope that he's not going to step on the actual buttons that turn off the actual program. So it's a real gamble, but yeah, I mean, that happens to be one of my greatest pleasures and joys. I will say that I also happen to be a runner. And if I had to choose like the top 3 things in my life that give me peace and pleasure, and I just can't live without, is the running and the pets. Because the running is the only time that I actually feel something. Maybe you've seen the documentary called Happy. There's a component of there where they talk about flow. And to me, having watched that, I was kind of overwhelmed by that concept, but it's kind of like the greatest flow of thought and energy goes through my brain. And I get the greatest ideas when I'm running. I also feel really empowered for a really tough day ahead and tough people to manage or even colleagues to deal with. So I find that like when I'm running, people see me running down the street and I'm punching, like I have a lot of energy and anger and I get it all out. And then I can calm down and go into my work day. But a day that I miss jogging or, running even for a short period of time is actually a day that I feel unarmed. And so that has been something, of a requirement to my day. And I will actually schedule my work day around running time. I'll also schedule when we had Broadway, we're an hour from Broadway. I recently, after having had kids and 10, 12 years of kids and all that, I used to live in New York. I trained in New York City at Beth Israel and Montefiore. And, I had such a pleasure going to Broadway shows. I was a stage kid, so this was always part of my life. And I used to go without any money during residency. and go to the half price ticket sales and go by myself and eat at some junky, Sparrow or some junk food, because I wasn't into health and wellness back then. And so nowadays I'm an hour from New York City, and I've said to my husband and my kids that I'm going to Broadway on Wednesdays, whenever, like once a month, once every other month. And that's what I was really into before pandemic hit. So I would just clear the day, move my patients, and I would make Wednesdays my day of Broadway by myself. And I'd go get sushi and a beer and go to a show and then zip right out. So I think you really have to work hard to create joy. And I've said this to my patients. Number one, can you identify what brings you joy? And it took me years of kids and family and getting life started to circle back to that question of, when do I feel the freest? And when does my mind feel the happiest? It could be dancing. It could be rolling down your windows on summer night and playing Donna Summer, which I do often, but it's also other activities that made you who you were before you became a wife or a mother or a caregiver, or, because there's caregivers out there that are taking care of parents and they're taking care of children with special needs. And I'm always telling my patients, find what gives you joy, even if you have to dig back a dozen years, and you've got to work for it. You've got to protect it. You've got to defend it, because everyone wants to suck the life out of you. Kids suck the life out of you. Spouses suck the life out of you. Work sucks the life out of you. Everyone wants. And it's our job to, especially if you're female, I'm going to be sexist, or maybe a single dad perhaps, but the idea is that, or maybe not a single dad, I guess. I don't want to be too sexist, but I mean, the idea is that we have to really as women, we often are the ones responsible for being the glue in the family. And I think that really takes a toll. And sometimes you just have to have the confidence and demand to protect your own freedoms and your own joys, because if you don't, no one else will. My mom used to say, be selfish, take what's yours. And, you could look at that in 10 different ways, but I look at it in the most positive way. She's right. Take what's yours, know who you are, and defend your right to take care of yourself. And sometimes, women let themselves go to the point where they're sick, which I see a lot, and they need someone to say to them, you deserve to be well. You deserve to take time for yourself. So that's what I found, especially over the last few years, is how to, really preserve my sanity, and also understand, I don't know if I'm going on too long, so maybe someone could yank me off if you think I'm yapping too long, but something I realized recently, which I think we're all growing in our lives in many ways, in different ways, but with my medical career and all this work with environmental health and writing books, which I did out of pleasure and sort of ended up in this field kind of haphazardly because my dog had passed away. In case you don't know the story, it's the introduction of my book that I did almost a year ago. It's called Non-Toxic, Guide to Living Healthy in a Chemical World. But what I learned over this really fast forward 5 years of a lot of professional changes is that I realized I want to pace myself. And I learned, there was a great quote. In fact, I wrote it down. I don't know if you guys ever watch Sunday Morning, CBS Sunday Morning Today. I look at it as medicine. I mean, I tell my patients, there's no shows on TV that give you happiness or show you good sides of humanity or nature, so it's on Sunday mornings in New Jersey on Channel 2 CBS, but from 9 to 10:30 East Coast. And they did an interview with Sean Penn's ex-wife, Robin Wright Penn. And she was interviewed, and it was really interesting. They asked her about her career and, all the choices she's made. And they asked her if they liked it, at her age, the longevity of her career. What did she think of that? And she had this really great quote, which I, of course, had to replay 6 times to get it down exactly. Why not just pace your career? ? You have to become a star ? And that star fades out because you do too much. You're seen too much. I know I never wanted to be that. And there was something about what she said that literally just kind of blew my mind. And I realized I'm 48 and I got a lot of stuff that I want to do, but there's no need to rush or feel bad for not being in the game like other people are so aggressively. And it makes me stressed a little of health and wellness and promotion and books and talks. And I just realized it may not be for me to be at that pace, and that's okay. And I think I'll be happier in the long run if I pace myself. So that was a recent revelation. Anyway, does anyone feel the same way? I mean, I'd love to hear about some people whose, recent, maybe even the pandemic changed your philosophy of your career, or, what your plans are for creating a family or getting married or not. I mean, it was a really interesting, 16 months now, where you had a chance to almost sit back and take a deep breath. It was like a snow day, an awful snow day, but it seemed to me like almost like a snow day where I could sort of, not be running around frenetically and really think about what it is I truly want in my life. Anyone? I don't know who to pick and how to do this. So I hope, I see someone raising their hand. Irene Zimmerman?
Yes. Hi, I'm back after a hiatus of several months being out of town. I understand everything you're saying. 5-6 years ago, became the caregiver I started out with 5 people and I'm down to 1. And everyone was before I was. I put on 40 pounds because I ate whatever was at hand. I broke out into hives at one point, and I didn't give myself any space. And I didn't think that it was necessary. I was so overwhelmed. When I got out of that about 2 years ago, I had to go to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, to find myself again. And that's what I went to them for. I want to find out who I was. I don't want to be anyone else. I want to go backwards and see who I was, because I was happy with myself. And it took a year of meditative walking, of exercises, of all kinds of things. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And it's mostly a woman's problem, not only, but a lot, and children also, I think, always are trying to please. And but women are noted for always doing first. And I think that what you're saying is right on, and everyone here should listen to what you're saying. Thank you.
My pleasure. Congratulations. Can you share with us what you figured out, or what's the joy that you're embracing?
I figured out that I've said in this meeting before, that I am a daughter and I am a sister, I am a wife, but all of those things have a place. In learning that you are those things, you find out who you're not and who you really are. So this is my experience. You give everybody their place, and in giving everyone in your life and things in a place, you're left with all that extra time for yourself, and you begin to discover projects and things about yourself, and walking. Life becomes easier. There's no big change. You're just not stressed all the time while still being all those things for people, but you give them a place. I don't know. It's like dividing your world into placing cubes, like you were a baby and you played with the blocks. Not that everyone's within a block. I don't want to simplify it, but everyone has their block, and you have a bigger block than everybody else. Because altogether, they probably all have a bit more than you do, but their blocks got to be smaller than your total, because it doesn't work. You wind up unhappy, making other people unhappy. I never got depressed, but I was unhappy. And I knew I had lost myself. I lost all the joy of reading, of writing, of everything. And it took a year of psychology, but in what is called behavioral change. No analysis. I didn't want to go back to, did my mother hit me and did my father not love me? That's not where you go into the change for. You go into who you are.
That's wonderful. I mean, and really, I think you're speaking what a lot of people wish, first of all, you took the time it's almost like Alcoholics Anonymous. I say it's like you have to know there's a problem to begin working on the problem. And I think people get sucked down the rabbit hole of just assuming that their role is what it is to so many. And there's just, I think, you have to pull yourself out. And you also, and this is another thing I talk about with patients also, is, self-esteem plays a really big role in healing, not just physical healing and feeling like you deserve to eat healthy food, you deserve to exercise for your body. Self-esteem, which starts at such a young age, it's starting points. I think that if you don't believe you deserve to have space or joy or to take a walk in nature, or like I said, it could be, do you deserve to eat healthy and clean and take your medicines or your supplements or whatever it is that keeps you healthy? I think people need to sometimes work on their self-esteem and why they don't value themselves to live a healthy life. That gets in the way, and it can come from childhood trauma. It could come from a whole host of things. And
there was also something else I discovered, shame. There was shame in not doing enough, and then came shame of not doing enough for myself. But no matter how I looked at it, there was shame, and that's what I'm working on right now.
Wow.
Where does that shame come from?
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It's really wonderful and brave of you to share with this audience.
We don't know that we feel that shame, but you got to get into it. And for more or less, I think we all feel that when we don't meet people's expectations, in this case, caregiving or your class or your career or all those things, there's a level of shame. And then when you take notice of it, then you feel shame you didn't do it. Thank you. I'll get off now. Okay.
No, you're wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
All right. Okay.
Anyone else feel or want to share? And Glendening. I'm sure I got it wrong, but anyway, yes, I don't know how to unmute you. So maybe Jeanette can do that, or you can unmute. I thought Anne wanted to speak. Ask to unmute. I'm not sure how this works, Tatiana. Someone named Anne wanted to speak, and I think
it looks like she's on mute and her video is off. Anne, if you're with us, could you unmute?
Or Anne, you can type your question in the chat box if you don't feel comfortable getting on.
where did I see another hand somewhere? I can't see.
Looks like Sheila has her hand up.
I'm unmuted now.
Oh no, there's Anne.
Can you see me? I had to get back in.
We can see you.
I got dropped out. But anyway, what I was going to say is I did a fair amount of just reflection. I mean, I live alone, and I'm a piano teacher giving piano lessons on Zoom, and it was just it's very isolating. And anyway, I had a lot of time to talk about joy. I had a lot of time to reflect on really the small things that give me joy that I hadn't even really noticed. You know, like the stained glass lamps that I bought a long time ago, and, you know, turning them on and looking at them and appreciating them, and, you know, needlepoint that's on the walls that my mother made. I mean, I was just, before COVID, I was just whipping by these things and forgetting to appreciate all these little things that are in my life, even when I'm confined to this apartment. My dog, talk about my dog. Let me see if I can get her to say hello. Come here, Joy. Come here, Joy.
Oh, her name is Joy. How cool is that?
Yeah, here she is.
Oh, look at her. She's pretty. Hi, Joy.
Sit, Joy.
I have a guy for you. No, just kidding.
She's the Belgian sheepdog, and she's been a lot of work, and she's got inflammatory bowel disease, so it's been quite a journey, but now she's been maintained well for 2 years. But anyway, so I appreciate the heck out of her, but it's just, I really have relearned how to appreciate the small stuff. As a child, you know, a flower was interesting, and a little pebble that I found on the beach or whatever. And, you know, I've lost all that, and just the little stuff and people. I've got a whole list of people that I now have reconnected with, that even someone I knew like 40 years ago, I was good friends with, and she dropped out of my life. So I think, you know, reflecting on the things that have brought you joy, including the people, is really good. And then my dog Joy, reason I got her is right, you know, right after the last election, and I just thought, well, she's going to bring joy into this situation that I'm not too happy about. So I'm going to name her Joy. So her name will remind me what I got her for. Anyway, that's about all I had to say.
That's great. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to share? I love these stories.
This is Sheila. I had my hand raised.
Oh, sure. I can't see. Tatiana. Okay.
But anyway, I just wanted to say.
Let me spotlight her.
Yes, please.
When you said you had a Wednesday that you go to the theater or whatever, I started a Fun Tuesday. So I decided every week I'm going to do something on one day. The whole day is going to be a fun day.
Great.
Now, challenge has been committing to it. You know, you set these things up and then after a few weeks, you just kind of let other things get in the way. But I decided to do that because, you know, you don't, regardless of what's going on, you don't get these things, these years back, you know, and as I age, I realize there's not a whole lot of years in front of me that were behind, you know, and technically we don't really know the time or the hour that it's going to be over. But in the meantime, we should be having fun and have, like you say, a joy. We should be having fun in these things. So I'm scheduling it in. And it's not necessarily like you going to the theater and taking I don't know if you have to take the train or whatever. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but there are all sorts of things that I've always wanted to do, like around here. Like I like museums. I like Great Falls is around, hiking, all these kinds of things. I like exploring antique shops and all of these kinds of things. I love the movies. But I put them off. And some things I've never really hardly done in years. And here we are in DC with all the museums around. And I've only been to like the African-American Museum lately because it was, you know, the new thing. But there are all these museums and I'm wasting time not going. So my Fun Tuesday will actually capture all these things that I've been putting off. So I'm glad you said you had a Wednesday like that. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And honestly, it's a great idea if you can make it the whole day. And I can't do every Wednesday. I try, but you know, because tickets are expensive and you have to space them out because it's kind of a big deal to leave and drive and go and whatever. But the idea is that you're thinking about it. You're creating a space, or at least emotionally, you're yearning for it. It's like, you know, people who aren't thinking they even are in it, you know, they're stuck in it. They don't necessarily think that they have to get out. Like there is a problem. So I think you can do it on a small scale too. You know, you can look at, you know, beautiful lamps in your home. You know, I've been out in the deck with my animals looking out at the backyard. And I don't really think I did that maybe once before the pandemic that often. You know, it's kind of one of those things that, you know, we took for granted a lot of things perhaps. And now we're just excited to take a deep breath and not feel sick. And we're alive and well, and you know, so these are important times, and we may change, you know, as we go forward and we forget. You know, humans have very short-term memories, as we all know, and we get back into our ruts again. But maybe journaling, maybe writing down some ideas or a poem or something that reminds you of this time that kind of zaps you into appreciation is always not a bad thing.
Another thing I wanted to say, if you can't get out to the theater on Wednesday or whatever, of course, going is the big deal, but PBS has some great theater on the great performances that maybe one night you could, you know, watch it in your home and just take time to do that. They have some really good theater quality shows that were really at the theater, quite frankly. They replay the Les Miserables that they played at some theater. Is just one of my favorite performances I've ever seen, where they're doing, I think one of the Jonas brothers plays one of the characters. It's just one of the most magical experiences. And they play it repetitively on PBS. It's actually the show, but in chorus form. And It's just remarkable. But yeah, I think you're right. I think just, you know, there's so much online stuff now that it's almost like it opened all of our eyes up to what is available. I mean, I post on, I might as well pitch it. The Smart Human is my
my feed on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the Smart Human podcast. It's all the Smart Human because it's all anthropology based. We're all human. We can all be smart. But that's my feed. And on Fridays, I have what's called Mental Health Fridays. And I post something that's either funny or about pets or mental health or resources or cool videos or stupid videos that are just funny. But it's really meant to lighten people up. And one of the things I was doing a lot of during the pandemic was on Mental Health Fridays, I was connecting with all the virtual theaters and shows that were available in London and this, and I was looking at and all the museums that you could tour virtually. And so I wanted Friday to be sort of this mental health virtual experience for people who really couldn't get out of their homes, of course, around the world. So, so I do appreciate what you're saying, and I'll probably end up having to do that coming up not too long from now. But the idea is that we are definitely more, we have more access to things that we might not have thought we did, a year ago, and even to other countries where we won't travel to anytime soon. So I appreciate that. It's true. It makes us a little less lonely, I think, when we can connect to parts of the other around the world. Anyone else want to chat it up? Or
It looks like Patricia
Tati just posted Dr. Cohen's website in the chat window.
Yeah, that's the website. And then of course, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are my babies. So if you can, I don't sell anything. I don't monetize it. I don't endorse anything. It's squeaky clean because I'm working to get integrative medicine and environmental health into schools across the country. So nothing I do is monetized. So you don't have to worry about sharing it, I hope, on Facebook with your entire Facebook list. But anyway, the idea is I get grants to teach based on numbers. And so please, feel free to invite as many people as you can to any of those platforms. Okay. Anyway, anyone want to chat? Let's see.
It looks like we've got Patricia, Dr. Cohen.
Cool.
Hi, I joined late, so I'm not sure what you were talking about earlier, but I did hear someone talk about gratitude and noticing things that they haven't seen before during the pandemic. And I wanted to let everyone know that Iona has a program via Zoom called Around Town. And one of their meetings is a gratitude circle. And that's been really wonderful. I've been doing that ever since, last, March or April. And it's a wonderful place to go with a group of people. And every week we mention two things that we're grateful for. And we expound on that and talk about that. And it's really gratifying, and it certainly puts you in the space of being grateful for everything that's going on that's good in your life, and even appreciating some of the darker things that may lead us into light. So just wanted to mention that. I hope it was appropriate to what this conversation was.
That was absolutely spot on, Patricia. Good job.
Okay.
You know how to rally well. Good for you.
All right, good. Yeah, and thank you very much. I'm glad I'm here.
Thank you for being here. I guess anyone else want to mention maybe their epiphanies during the last 12, 16 months? Let me think what else I wanted to share with you guys. That was really some of the main things that I took notes on, and trying to think about what to discuss. I guess I'm talking from a personal experience. When you're really busy and you're just trying to find space to breathe, you have to work for it. And, I see so many people, sort of, even colleagues. I have a lot of physician colleagues that are really struggling, and they're really struggling because of what we're in it now. And we're dealing with a lot of, anti-science, and it's really hard on the psyche to see things go the way they're going. And so I think you just have to pick your lane, speak your truth, and keep going, and and keep your voice active where you think it's appropriate. So I try to do that and still be sane. Anyone else? I feel like, let's see. Oh, Anne, you raised your hand again. Is that you?
Yes, I just did want to, am I unmuted or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did just want to add, as I said, I'm a piano teacher. I'm not trying to do a plug here at all. I really not. But I have adult students, and they've been so, it's been really healing during COVID for these piano lessons via Zoom. They are just, so I urge people to use music in whatever way, whether it's playing an instrument or picking up the instrument you used to play or singing, put on oldies but goodies or something and sing. Music is so healing. And I think many of us enjoyed music at one time in our lives and then have let it just go by the wayside because we got too busy. And I can't tell you how my adult students have felt kind of saved. I mean, they've literally said to me, I mean, I've got one who works with COVID patients. I mean, another one is trying to save Social Security, a major person in that, and is all stressed out with, you know, things that are going on with that. And they get in the lesson and they just say, oh my God, this is such a way for me to release my problems and get away from it and express myself. So please, whatever you can do, if it's just humming a tune, music heals.
I second that. That's awesome. I see Irene.
Yes, I just want to chime in on what Anne just said, that if anyone has seen that YouTube video of, I believe it's in England, there where the animals in the zoo became depressed because no one went to visit, and they played music to them, piano and instruments, and they got the people from the National Symphony, I believe, and how the animals, you see all the animals in the zoo revive. So just to support that, we should support ourselves with music.
Yeah, I know there are PET scan studies. I'm sure Lee can talk about this as well, but there's PET scans, you know, when people listen to some classical music, they've had people in the scanner showing different parts of the brain lighting up, parts like dopamine areas, and really kind of relating to what you're saying is that there is something very primal about our need for music, that there is some component there. And you're saying that the animals obviously are very similar in the same regard. So I think that's why the music industry does as well as it does, because we all need to have some connection to music, whatever genre that may be. It's certainly in the arts, like, you know, Broadway, to me, dance, people took up dancing during the last 16 months. They were doing, all ballroom dancing, and you name it, I could see it on screen. It was really kind of fascinating.
Evolutionarily speaking, we sang before we played instruments. So singing is very good too.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's the easiest instrument we have available. So that's probably true. That's interesting. Anyone else with any questions, ideas, comments? Has anyone been outside today already to walk? No, not yet. Irene, get out there. Come on now. It's still early. Yeah, it's one of those things you can argue it's the heat, but you could also say maybe you're just too busy, but I get it. You have the whole weekend. Okay, so there you go.
Today.
Yeah.
And we're all going to go on a forest walk with Sage. So.
Oh, cool. That would be fun. We could do a virtual forest walk. Does anyone have any questions? I know that I was kind of supposed to be prepared for any vaccine questions or COVID questions, or, you know, I mean, here's an opportunity. I'm an immunologist by training as a rheumatologist. So if anyone has any questions, I can try to answer them. I just don't want to give any medical advice to anybody.
What is happening? Why exactly are we now going to be using the masks indoors? What is the criteria?
Yeah. So, you know, everything is like, some moving target. Every day there's a new report. So I can only tell you what I know up to this moment. And of course, I may be wrong compared to what just came up on the screen with the CDC. But in general, you know, we have this variant, Delta variant, which is really worrisome because it can spread to people much more. I think it's two times more faster than the previous versions of SARS-CoV-2. And so that it has this jumpability. I've heard references about chicken pox being that contagious, where you could just walk by someone now, as opposed to before you could walk outside. There are studies supporting this. I haven't read all the studies supporting this, but I do listen to people that I trust and I have met and know, like Fauci, Dr. Fauci and his team. And, there's evidence to show in the numbers, independent of what you may or may not think in terms of the actual studies, we're seeing that, obviously in the South where more people are unvaccinated, the numbers have ticked up dramatically. And it's mostly from unvaccinated to unvaccinated transmission, but we're also seeing breakthrough cases of vaccinated patients or people having the ability to not only get COVID, but to also potentially spread it because of this Delta variant. As an immune system doctor who deals with patients who not only have innate problems with their immune system, but also are on medications that are intentionally meant to dampen the immune system, right? To lower the immune systems that are too overactive for rheumatoid or lupus, MS, Crohn's, Parkinson's, ulcerative colitis. I mean, there's just so many Hashimoto's. So many of the diseases that are autoimmune are often overactive immune systems where the medications are on board to quiet or normalize the immune system. This is obviously a very general discussion. But what's worrisome is that upwards of around, I think, quoted 40% of patients who have underlying immune system problems or even have medications that are required to be on board for their maintenance of their condition may not have mounted the full antibody response that is appreciated and what we look for and want from a vaccine. Remember, vaccines stimulate the immune system to create B cells, which are these warrior cells to be on guard for the next exposure, which would be the actual infection, and to fight it. And so we want our immune system to be hardy enough to be able to build those B cells. Often in my world, we hold the medications either the week of or the week after or both to let the body create those B cells and then, restart medications. Obviously with exceptions, but what this really comes down to in practical terms is we need to wear masks. We need to wear masks not only for ourselves, so that I'm 7 months post vaccine. I got mine first in line, December 24th, same day as Fauci and Biden. I remember the day because I was in tears on the way to and from my injection because I felt like I had gotten the golden ticket. It was like Willy Wonka, and I couldn't believe that I was blessed enough to be in medicine enough to get it and be on the front lines to do that. So my perspective is very different than a lot of people. But I'm 7 months in from that set of that series of, my 2 vaccine shots from, I guess I got Pfizer at the time. And so, of course, we need to wear masks, not only because I don't know where my B cell levels are. We don't have titer levels in the lab. We don't have that ability to check a titer or a level of our immunity. It's either pregnant or not. You either got antibodies or not. We don't even know how many that is and how much that is. So I am now wearing an N95 with patients. I am wearing a mask everywhere I go. I ask all patients, vaccinated or not, to wear masks in my office. I keep the doors open because it's nice weather right now. We wipe down everything. We're back to protocol. I mean, we're back to hand washing, and I use only isopropyl alcohol if you're interested because of the horrible chemicals that are in so many of the newly promoted products. You really just want 70% isopropyl alcohol with the inactive ingredient on the bottle. On the bottom, it should say water. So you can get that at any pharmacy. You don't need Lysol. You don't need all these cockamamie things that I'm seeing all over. You just need isopropyl alcohol. You don't even need wipes because I spray my kids. I have a sprayer on the ends of the alcohol bottles, and everyone holds up their hands and I go spritz, 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 spritz. You go like this, done, no wipes, no waste. So I have one in my car, one in my office. I keep them everywhere in my pocketbook. But I think we're back.
Dr. Aly,
yeah,
this is amazing information. And I'm quite sure all of it is on the Smart Human website.
No, not this stuff. What is it on? I post on the Facebook, the Smart Human on Facebook. That's really one of the key places I post these kind of articles that I've written and stuff like that.
Okay, so
And
everybody
the website. Sorry, that article is on the website. Yeah.
keep all that in mind. Can you stay with us until after Sage is done if people have more questions, or do you need to go?
Me, I can stay.
Excellent. So we're going to turn everything over to Sage, and then people, you can start putting your questions in the chat so Dr. Cohen can look through and maybe answer them after our mind-body session. Okay. Sage,
Yes.
there he is.
Well, it's here. I'm here somewhere behind these trees. I hide. Well, thanks for joining us. Yes, thanks for joining us, everybody. And right now, as Jeanette mentioned earlier, I am at the National Arboretum. And for today's walk, it's going to be different. So I don't know if you've joined us before, but if you had, like I said, we're going to do things a little bit differently. And if you haven't, well, this is forest bathing, and it's just going to be a very rather slow walk, if you will. And for some of you, you're wondering what forest bathing may be. And if you've ever spent time outside, I'm sure we've all done forest bathing before. We just never gave it a name. So one of the things, and I'll start off with this, one of the things that we do when we're getting into forest bathing is we just start to tune in and prime our senses. So what I'm going to have you folks do, you can either go ahead and look at the screen, or if there's a window that's nearby, or if you can actually step outside, you're more than welcome to do that, and you can just listen to the soothing sound of my voice. Or just, again, just observe this screen. And what we're going to do is either you go ahead and close your eyes, bring it to a soft gaze, gently stare at one of the trees that are on the screen. If you want to, you can close your eyes and bring your memories or reach into your memory banks and pick out a tree from your past, perhaps. What we're going to do now is just take a nice, gentle, deep breath. Gently exhale. Go ahead and do that again. And as you exhale, let's just soften our body. Take a moment to observe or recall this tree. And as you think about and visualize this tree, imagine what it would be like to be this tree. Can you imagine your feet and toes just reaching into the ground as if it were roots, seeking its way underneath the earth? Or perhaps sitting or standing erect, upward towards the sky. If you were that tree, how would that feel for you? Perhaps with your branches or arms reaching outward, upward. Or perhaps they just dangled downward. I wonder what sounds your leaves would make in the breeze. Just using our imagination, let's say that our fingers are our leaves. Let's just slowly rub those fingers together. Maybe putting one by your ear, maybe another hand by the other. Either with one finger or two fingers, maybe even three. Perhaps slowing the pace or speeding it up. That is the sound of your leaves. And I wonder, as feel like to you? Can you feel the sun on your bark? Perhaps on your leaves? your limbs feel warmth, I wonder what your roots feel. How cool is the soil? And as your leaves breathe, I wonder what they smell, what scents they can pick up through the breeze. And I wonder what chemicals you release into the air. Again, nice, gentle, deep breath. Now let's bring our focus back to the screen, or back to my voice, to this present moment. And we're going to do what we call a brief chatterfall. If you're not familiar with what a chatterfall is, it's almost like a waterfall. I'm just going to seek, what did you notice during that invitation? Or what I'd like for you to do is go ahead and key in one word into the chat box. And when I say now, but not just yet, we'll all hit send at the same time. So it'll all pop up into my screen and it'll give me a moment to kind of read each one, kind of like a popcorn style. So go ahead and think of that one word, key it in, but do not hit send just yet. I'll give you all a moment to key in that one word, something that you observed in that exercise. So if we are ready, go ahead and I'll give you a countdown. 3, 2, 1, send. And I feel a breeze, sparkle, connected, breathe, breath. And peaceful. Peaceful. Thank you for sharing, everybody. So, wind. Yes. Freedom! Yes. Freedom feels great. Even if it's sunny and hot outside, freedom feels great. Okay, so for our next invitation, now that our senses have been primed, take a little stroll. And usually when we go forest bathing, that's what we do. It's a nice little stroll. We don't rush around. We're not doing a marathon. We're not an ultra marathoner. We are doing what we call like a saunter. It's like an amble, just waddling along, kind of meandering along. Some of you may remember the cartoon, or excuse me, the comic strip called, was it Family Circus? With the family and of like little kids, and the kids would sometimes walk around and they would just have an overlay of the neighborhood and it'd be a dotted line of where the kids are walking. And it's never a straight line from like the store to the house. It's always just meandering. So that's what we're gonna do now, is meander. And as we meander, I'd like for you to think about two things. One, what's in motion as we go down this path? Whatever you see is in motion. And you don't have to put that into the chat box. You can just kind of keep that in your thoughts. We'll get to those momentarily. But as I'm walking, just observe what you may see that's in motion. And walking slow is something that's good, because as we walk slowly, we're able to take the time to observe different things. Perhaps at a faster pace, we may totally not see. So that is one thing, one invitation. What's in motion? Observing that. The other thing is, if there's something that you see that may catch your eye on this little walk, just let me know, because what I'd like for you to do also is, there's a texture that's out there, and this invitation is called texture gathering. So for example, coming across this leaf right here. So if there's anything that has an interesting texture that may catch your eye, or just anything in general, just have me pause. You can just unmute yourself and just say pause and pick up, Sage, and just point out to me what it may be that is capturing your interest. And in case anyone's wondering, yes, I am at the National Arboretum here in DC in the Northeast quadrant. And right now in the Arboretum, closer towards the New York Avenue entrance by where they have an urban stream. And that's the path that I'm on currently. I don't know if you can hear it, but off in the distance is the brief sound of, or the muffled sound of New York Ave. Sometimes, this is interesting, sometimes if we are slow enough, we may notice things. And I don't know if you can see, there's this, well, I'm on the path here. Off to my left here, to this side of the path, looks like something has made its way down this path. This tall grass has been pushed over, and it looks like it goes down underneath into that bush. Just by backing up, if I look over this way on this side of the path, it looks like something or someone has pushed the grass down across this way. So it looks as if some creature, and I would probably wager it must be like a turtle of some sort, that's making its way down into the water there. Interesting things we may observe as we're walking, moving around slowly. I don't know if you folks can hear the bird chirp or the insects in the background here. Sure you've all observed that now I am underneath some shade, and if you were with me, you'd feel the coolness of being in the shade. And with this gentle breeze that's going through here, definitely is soothing. Now coming out of the woods out into the sun again. Across this little road here, make our way to the pond to see what else we may observe. don't know if you caught that movement. It looks like a turtle just jumped off the log. Take a moment here, because I do realize, just looking down at the clock right now, that it is close to 3 o'clock. I don't want to keep anyone if they do need to be going. But I'm just going to spend the next few minutes with the camera just pointing out towards the pond here. This is something that I'd suggest that if you have the time to make, go outside and to spend at least 20 minutes. And whether you're slowly walking or perhaps setting up a hammock, whether that's in your backyard or what neighborhood park you may be near, go ahead and take 20 minutes to just sit and observe. And I can't guarantee it, but I'd highly wager that if you do that 20 minutes, do that every day, maybe 4 to 5 times a week in a particular spot. It's called a sit spot. And once you find that sit spot, just go back to it. And what ends up happening is, again, do that a couple days out of the week, do that every week for a month, perhaps even for a season or 2. I'd highly wager that the creatures, the more than human beings that frequent that sit spot of yours, will get accustomed to you being there. You know, I think once they are used to you being there, you may notice some changes that nature will provide for you. Perhaps answers of some sort. But take a moment in your day if you can. Again, 20 minutes spent outside. If we can go ahead and take a nice collective deep breath. And if there's anything you'd like to share in a word or 2 words, again, we can go ahead and do a chatterfall. So I'll let you put those 1 or 2 words into the chat. And give us a moment before I give you a countdown. And just a word or 2, again, to make this walk complete for you. So if you're ready, those words, we can go ahead and 3, 2, 1, go ahead and send. Simplicity. Thank you, Monica. Anyone else would like to share? Otherwise, I think I can pass it back to Dr. Cohen as in regards to questions. Breathing joy. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you so much, Sage. Dr. Cohen, do you want to step in and answer some of the questions we had pop up in the chat?
Let me see. Start video. So I got a private message in regards to telemedicine. Do I do telemedicine and do I do work across state lines? And the answer is yes, just to mention. But because of licensing across state lines, there are issues with treating and also prescribing and getting labs across state lines. So often I'm a second opinion in many ways, or I'm an integrative medicine consultant as a primary, because that doesn't require anything. That's important information about supplements and general stuff. Some of the other questions, maybe you can point them to me, because let's see. I don't see questions. Do you see
So we
questions?
had one about how accurate PCR is in detecting Delta.
That I don't know. You know, this Delta variant, it's been, I think, around for several months, but I haven't read the studies regarding the accuracy of PCR. What I have been made aware of is 85% of all new cases now are have the Delta variant. So it's the predominant version of SARS-CoV-2 now. So I think we should assume that everyone has Delta until proven otherwise. So we don't just think that everyone's walking around with a less virulent form of COVID. I think that would be a mistake. I wanted to mention some statistics that came off of the CDC is that 70% of the northern states have adolescents that are vaccinated, but only 17% of adolescents in the southern states. And I think we should really be aware of the fact that, and my kids are vaccinated, 12 and 14. They don't have any health issues that would, you know, make them interesting cases or at least worth a discussion, because that is the case with some kids. You don't want to vaccinate necessarily everyone if there's a medical problem. But I do think we need to think about where we are with going into schools in the fall. Some schools are starting already. I think in Georgia, they're starting already in August. And you do need those, you know, for 2 vaccinations, you need to space them out. And so that we're talking about 3 weeks to really become fully immune as best you can in terms of what's capable for your body. So you really want to space that out and start now. If your kids are planning to go back to school, and in my kids' school, it's required, which I'm thrilled about, unless you have an exemption for religious or medical purposes. So that's a whole nother, you know, thing that people may be involved with. But in my feeling is that that's a good thing. Let's see.
We also had a question about isopropyl alcohol versus Purell.
So Purell, if I'm correct, has isopropyl alcohol in it. I don't have one in front of me because I never use it, but you have to always look at the inactive ingredients in every product. So in the United States, we have no regulation regarding testing for safety or toxicity of ingredients before they're put into personal care products, cosmetics, cleaning products, furniture, you know, products that clean the air, Febreze, all of these air fresheners, candles, everything but food. So food is what is covered by the USDA. And when it says USDA organic, that means that that product cannot, it falls in line with certain criteria from 1982 when USDA began. And essentially, you know, organic food and drinks are legit. But you can't say that about products like personal care products. Even if they say organic, it could mean that they have one ingredient that's organic and then the rest are all junk, crap, poison, toxic, whatever, endocrine disruptors. So I really want people to think about cleaning products. I post on this, actually, Instagram. I posted about a wet wipe I was handed on one of the airlines when I got on. And the active ingredients, it's something like, you know, isopropyl alcohol or something like an alcohol. And then if you looked at the bottom where it says inactive ingredients, it had a paragraph of terrible chemicals. I could pick out at least probably half a dozen that I recognize as being harmful. And I posted, and interestingly enough, one of the stewardess that I gave a card to, the Smart Human card, because I give them out everywhere, she actually said she was going to bring that up with the union because she saw my post the next day on Instagram. So I was very tickled by that. It only, you know, takes one person to make a difference. So, you know, if you have a situation where you can make a difference, do so. But anyway, so there's active ingredients, which is a great seller because it might have one ingredient. You think, oh, this is fabulous. But don't be fooled. The inactive ingredient in almost every product is where, you know, you run into issues because people don't think that there's a lot in there or enough in there to cause harm.
Thank you. Another question was from Anne about long haulers and vaccinations. If you're vaccinated, are you vulnerable to getting long hauler syndrome?
So that's a really interesting question. I think we're now starting to see some people, I say we collectively, but you know, I have to speak really more from a personal perspective. I have seen tons of COVID, post-COVID long haulers. young people, healthy people. I saw an all-American squash player who's like a medical resident. I mean, can't even, move, fatigue for like 7 months now. I'm telling you, people who don't want to be inactive or fatigued, or have cognition issues, memory loss. In terms of the vaccinated, my understanding is why I support the vaccine, no matter how you look at it, is that you will not die from COVID with a vaccine. I mean, pretty much we have, every emergency room is filled with the unvaccinated getting to the stage where they're sick enough to go to the emergency room and be admitted and has hospitalization. But the vaccine keeps you from that stage. And so I think it's really important to say that, I would think that most people that are the sickest with COVID infection are probably the ones most likely to have the long haul syndrome because it was such a hit to their body. Not that that's always the case. But no matter how you look at it, being vaccinated is going to keep you from dying in most cases. The long haul syndrome, I haven't seen the data on vaccinated patients yet. To see those who were exposed or who ended up getting clinical symptoms, ended up getting long-term symptoms such as long haul syndrome symptoms because we haven't had the vaccine around long enough, I think, to collect that data accurately.
All right, that's all the questions in the chat box. I think Benita and Patricia have their hands up. I don't know if they want to ask questions.
I forgot to take my hand down, so
Okay.
do that. Thank you for checking.
Yeah, Benita, do you have a question?
Oh, it would help if I actually unmute myself. Yeah. So my question that I was just about to type in was this. So we know that long haulers have been developing POTS and other forms of dysautonomia. It just so happens that I have a form of dysautonomia. And so my question is, this is why, like last week, I was a little bit like, so PCR is negative, but is that really the case? I mean, I don't have symptoms anymore, thank God, but I did have trouble breathing when I had this summer cold or whatever that was. And that's why I'm like, do we know yet whether people with POTS and other forms of dysautonomia are protected against the vaccine? Like, I'm fully vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean, that question of how great is the test itself is really what hinges for everything, really, but I'll tell you, I had a lot of COVID patients that had every symptom, were in the hospital and tested negative back in the day before we even had the vaccine. So I think what we've learned most is that nothing is 100%. And, if you do have symptoms, if you've been around someone who tests positive, it is actually, recommended to get tested because we know that unvaccinated folks can carry the Delta variant and spread it more so than maybe the non-Delta. Then you have sort of this quiet underlying, force that's kind of moving us along. So I think, I don't really have a great answer for you. I would get repetitive testing by PCR and see whether it comes back positive. I mean, I think that over time, if there's actually a virus in you, it's going to replicate, which is what PCR identifies. And so maybe it was too soon to really get an accurate test. Maybe there's a window by which, you can catch those particles because PCR looks at actually the particulate of the infection. So I think the jury is out, but if you do in fact think that you in some way contracted, it would be worthwhile just to probably put your mind at ease and to help you be social again and be around people to get tested. But it's an inaccurate science. As far as I can see, I think you should always just lean on the side of precaution, because there's just so much that's still an unknown and there's outliers. I mean, there are people that are getting COVID. I mean, I think it was like 11 out of 12 of the Phillies that were fully vaccinated. They had to stop the game. We don't really know. There was someone who posted about the Provincetown get together and had, I think it was 85 people that were all fully vaccinated that they're looking at. So, it just goes back to the idea that we really need to pretend and act as though we really don't have a vaccine in our bodies because everything's fair game. It's really hard when you have kids. My two kids, they're running around with all these kids and, Most of them are vaccinated. Fortunately, in New Jersey, it's like a thing to really get vaccinated here. But again, you know, they're coming back to parents and grandparents. And I think we shouldn't let our guard down, because these are unprotected people. These are immune compromised people that actually we don't all know everyone's history. And it's just not fair to put people in that position. So I believe in the masks. It's a pain. I think we're going back. We were free for a while. But I think we all have to be part of humanity and work towards and with each other.
Thank
I
you.
think
The
that is a
challenge
great
was
place
the
to end the conversation.
But good luck to you. I hope that POTS works, you know, you get some treatment, because that is an absolute real thing. That's a vasovagal condition. It's really sort of an imbalance of your positional. It stands for positional. I can't even remember right now.
postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
Thank you.
I was going to say that I don't actually have POTS. I have orthostatic intolerance, which is a different form of dysautonomia. What I was going to say was that unfortunately, CDC has not come out and clearly stated that dysautonomia was even an underlying condition.
There's so many odd things that have come out of
super
COVID. POTS is a very interesting one that's come out. So, so I wish you well on that.
Thank you.
And I wish everyone a beautiful weekend. Let's thank Dr. Aly and Sage, everybody.
Thank you, Sage.
And have a beautiful weekend.
Bye, everyone. Find your joy.
Take care. Enjoy your weekend.